I'm Amy Pinnell, the Community Development Director for the Town of Braselton.
And I'm Jessica Payne, the Main Street Manager for the Town of Braselton.
And welcome to another Buy Local Braselton Toolbox video series. So today we're going to be talking about a subject that we get a lot of questions about, and we are by no means experts on this. But
most definitely not.
but Jessica's done a little bit of research on it. She's going to help us walk us through a little bit, and that's about signs and sign ordinances.
Yes. So as Amy said, definitely not an expert on this. And we will just go ahead and start off by saying if you have further questions on signage, we'll be happy to try and answer them. More than likely, we will have to go find the answer for you. It's probably always best to contact the Planning and Zoning Department and direct any signage questions you have towards them.
They're really the keeper of all those rules, and
they are the keeper of the signage rule book.
Yes.
So there are kind of a few areas of signage we were going to dive into a little bit today, and I did reach out to Kevin Keller at the Planning Department, and he gave me 3 areas that he gets the most questions in. So that is kind of what we're going to touch on. So those 3 areas are permanent signs, temporary signs, and window signs. Window signs are kind of simple. You do not have to get permission or a permit for those. But there is one main rule to always remember, and that is your window sign cannot take up more than 25% of your window.
So you're saying that I have to look at my business and kind of calculate the glass, and only 25% of that can have my business logo and name.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And I would say if you're questioning if it's too big, go smaller. It's probably the easiest rule of thumb for that. And again, just to reiterate, window signs are the only signage you do not need a permit for. Permanent.
But you can I jump in?
Absolutely.
But you can, if you're not sure about that 20, because most of us are going to want our sign as big as possible, right?
Yes.
But you don't need a permit.
No.
But it wouldn't hurt to give them a call and just run it by them and just make sure that you're within that.
Yes, I would definitely
25%.
Suggest that.
Okay.
Because you do not want code enforcement knocking on your door after you've already spent money for your signage and telling you that it's too large.
Yeah,
so
that's a good tip.
If there is a question, I would certainly reach out to Planning and Zoning.
Let's talk a little bit about permanent signage.
Okay. So permanent signage is, I would say, rather simple. You have to have a permit.
Just
period.
Okay.
You can find the application online on braselton.net, and you have to complete that and turn it in before you can get approval. One thing that I would make sure of, especially for our Braselton West businesses, is that, we always talk about how we are in 4 counties with 4 zip codes. So you want to make sure that whatever signage company you're working with realizes that you are in Braselton, even if your address is Houston or Flowery Branch or Buford. If you have a Braselton business license, it does not matter what your mailing address is. You are in Braselton, so your signage is going to have to be approved through the Town of Braselton. So just make sure that your signage company is aware of that. That way they are following the local ordinances. Here, there are a few businesses that we've talked to, 2 I think in particular I can think of, that purchased their permanent signage, had it installed, and it went against ordinance somehow, and they had to redo it. So
yeah, and that's a costly, costly mistake. And I'm not sure who's responsible for that. If that's your sign company,
it's not us.
It's not us, absolutely. But yeah, so you don't want to put yourself in that situation.
Absolutely.
So make sure that whoever you're working with, designing your signage, is looking at the right ordinances. If they tell you they know, that's great, but just verify that they are looking at Braselton and not necessarily the city that your zip code
Absolutely.
corresponds with. That's a confusing one.
It is, yes.
Okay, but otherwise, permanent signage, and permanent signage, we're talking about something that's affixed to your
Correct.
business, your building, something like that. So,
Yes.
okay, yeah, and that's really important because you need signage.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, very
It
important.
is very important to marketing, traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the number one thing you can do is have prominent signage for your business.
Yeah, it's a good investment, really good
Yes.
investment. And then there's temporary signs. So tell us a little bit more about temporary signage, what that looks like.
So temporary signage could be a little more confusing. You do have to be permitted as well for temporary signage. Banners.
So if I'm
grand
doing
opening
like a
signs.
sale, a big clearance sale, I'm getting ready, to move my inventory. So I just want to put, like I'm having a sidewalk sale. I want to put
Yes.
a sign out on the sidewalk.
If-
That would be a temporary sign.
Absolutely. And the only exception to not permitting for temporary signs are A-frame signs. So if you're doing a sidewalk sale, I would suggest using an A-frame sign because you do not have to apply for a permit for that. So that would probably be the most cost-effective way to go.
Okay, but
for
if I'm
that.
doing a big anniversary celebration and I want to put something up for several weeks, advertising that
Yes.
I've got a big anniversary event happening.
Yes.
That I need a permit for.
Definitely need a permit for that. There is a permit on Braselton.net for temporary signage. You complete that, you send it in, and they'll let you know when it's approved for temporary signage.
So probably when in doubt, go ahead and reach out to planning and
Yes.
permitting and those folks and talk about what you're wanting to do.
Absolutely.
And making sure that that you're right. So temporary sign. So you did mention the A-frame sign is the
Yes.
exception. Were there any other exceptions for not needing a permit or what
Well,
you
there-
can and can't do with
Well, there
temporary?
are a few things you can and can't do with A-frame signs, even though you don't need a permit. So with the A-frame sign, it must be located no further than 50 feet from your building, and it cannot be placed in public parking areas, drives, or sidewalks. And there's an exception to the exception
Oh
for
my
that.
goodness, wow.
So in the downtown overlay district, you can place daily A-frame signs and sandwich boards on a public sidewalk, but only through the permission of the town manager, Jennifer Scott. So A-frames are the exception to getting a permit for temporary signs. And there's an exception to A-frame signs in the downtown overlay district. Follow that?
Oh, yeah, complicated. But another thing, just while we're talking about signs, those A-frame signs and temporary signs, really important that when we have these big windstorms or, gusty
Yes.
days, you take a look at your signage. Make sure you know where your signs go. They sometimes end up across the street, and we don't want that. So if you're putting temporary signs out, keep up with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't want that. Doesn't look good. It doesn't look good when our people are walking, shoppers are looking around, and it didn't look good for our town to
100%.
Yeah, so that's just a
100%.
little tip there. So Jessica, what about yard signs?
So great question. One rule of thumb to keep in mind with yard signs is you do not need to be placing them in the right of way on highways and roads. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And in the downtown district overlay, signs made of corrugated plastic are strictly prohibited.
Good to know. That's really great information. Thanks for doing all that research.
Absolutely. And I know we've said this many times within this video, but we really can't stress it enough. If you have questions about signage before you make your final purchase, before you sign the contract with the company, and before you finalize your graphics, we really recommend that you reach out to the Planning and Zoning Department, speak to staff there. They will be able to answer any questions or point you in the right direction for that.
That's absolutely right. Thanks. It's a great topic.
Yes.